It is 3 in the morning, and our little stick figure is wide awake. He did not mean to be. A few hours ago, he did everything right. He climbed into his warm bed. He pulled the blanket up to his chin. He scrolled his phone for 40 minutes, watching videos of dogs failing to catch frisbees, and then, somewhere in the middle of the fourth video, his eyes slid shut and he drifted off. Simple, comfortable, honestly, kind of beautiful. And now, for no reason at all, his eyes are open again, staring at the ceiling in the dark. He checks the glowing clock, 3 in the morning, and immediately the panic begins. His brain, which was peacefully offline a moment ago, roars back to life and starts doing what every modern brain does at this hour. It starts to worry. Why am I awake? Is something wrong with me? I have to be up in 4 hours. If I do not fall back asleep right now, tomorrow is ruined. He reaches for his phone, the worst possible move, and the cold blue light hits his face. He starts typing his symptoms into a search bar. By 3:30, he has diagnosed himself with 2 disorders and a rare deficiency. Our little stick figure does not know it yet, but everything he believes about this moment is wrong. The panic, the certainty that he is broken, the reaching for the screen, all of it. Because here is a question almost nobody ever stops to ask. We spend a third of our entire lives asleep, and we rarely wonder how completely different that experience was for the people who came before us. So tonight, while he lies there in the glow of his phone, feeling like something has gone wrong, let us take him on a journey. Let us pull him out of this bed and send him backward, way back, to find out what human beings actually did with the night for almost the whole of our story. The room goes dark. The phone slips from his hand, and when he opens his eyes again, the bed is gone. He is sitting on cold ground in a forest, wrapped in a rough animal skin, and the darkness around him is not the friendly darkness of a bedroom with a streetlight leaking through the curtains. This is the real thing. Full, absolute, crushing dark. He lifts his hand in front of his face and sees nothing. Not a shape, not an outline, nothing. And somewhere out in that nothing, 20 feet away, something large is moving through the bushes. This, he realizes with a sinking heart, was an ordinary Tuesday for his ancestors. Our stick figure has landed in the most basic and most terrifying problem early humans ever faced. Half of every single day was spent in this. Not the streetlight is too bright, through my curtains kind of dark. Not the I forgot to charge my phone and cannot find the bathroom kind of dark. The kind where every snapped twig could be the last sound you ever hear. And in that dark, things hunted. Lions, hyenas, leopards, saber-toothed cats. Almost every great predator of the ancient world was built for exactly these hours, most active at dusk, at dawn, and through the deep middle of the night. They could see when our stick figure could not. They could move when he had to freeze, which means that the moment the sun went down, the whole arrangement of the world flipped. By day, his people were the hunters, the clever ones, the ones who tracked and chased and brought things down. By night, he became something else entirely. He became a reasonably nutritious snack with no night vision and a sharp rock. He did not need a weather app to know the forecast. The forecast was dark, with a high chance of being eaten. So, our little stick figure does what his ancestors learned to do. He does not just sit in the open and wait to die. He looks for high ground. He looks for somewhere enclosed, somewhere with the land itself at his back. And not far off, in the side of a hill, he finds it, a cave. He scrambles up to the entrance and slips inside, and the moment he does, his whole body relaxes by a notch. Because a cave, he understands now, is not damp and ugly and pointless. A cave is the first security system humans ever owned. It has one entrance. He can put his back against solid rock. He knows exactly which direction any danger has to come from because there is only one direction it can come from. He cannot swipe a keycard to lock it. But then again, a leopard cannot swipe a keycard either. And he is not alone in here. As his eyes adjust to the faint gray light at the cave mouth, he sees them. Other shapes. Other people, wrapped in skins like him, pressed close together on the cave floor. He lowers himself down among them, close enough to feel their warmth, close enough to hear them breathe. It is not cozy, not in the way a bed is cozy, but it is a different kind of safety, a deep and ancient kind, the safety of numbers. Because here is the quiet genius of sleeping in a pile of people. Somebody is always a light sleeper. Somebody always stirs. Somebody is always, without ever meaning to, keeping watch. If something came to the cave mouth tonight, one of these sleeping shapes would jolt and gasp, and in half a second the whole group would be awake and shouting. Our stick figure does not have to stay up all night guarding the door. The group guards itself automatically while it sleeps. He pulls his skin tighter and lets out a long breath. For the first time since he woke at 3 in the morning a million years from now, he feels a flicker of something that is not fear. And then, from deeper in the cave, he sees a light begin to glow. It is a fire. Somewhere around 400,000 years ago, our ancestors gained real, reliable control over flame, and the entire meaning of the night changed in that instant. Our little stick figure crawls toward the warm orange glow at the center of the cave, and as he gets close, he feels it doing its quiet magic. It warms him. Yes. He can already smell something cooking in the embers. Food made softer and richer and easier for his body to use. But the most important thing the fire does is something he cannot quite see, only feel. It draws a circle, a ring of light on the cave floor, with all the people inside it and the dark pushed back beyond its edge. It is a wall made of nothing but light, and yet it is completely, genuinely real, because most large predators will not cross into firelight. Not because flame physically blocks them, because they evolved to hunt in darkness, and an open fire is a confusion, an anomaly, a thing that should not be there. Sitting beside this fire, our stick figure is safer from being hunted than he has been all night, and not through muscle, not through speed, but through light itself. But the fire is about to do something far stranger than keep him alive. It is about to change what kind of creature he is. Because think about what you can actually do around a fire. You cannot read. You cannot write. You cannot be productive in any way the modern world would recognize. You cannot send a single passive-aggressive message to a coworker. What you can do, the only thing you can really do, is sit and look at the faces around you and be completely, totally present with the other people in the circle. And as our little stick figure settles into that circle, one of the old ones begins to speak. During the day, he had noticed these people mostly talked about practical things. Who was hunting where, what needed gathering, who would go to the water in the morning, the ancient version of a Monday briefing. But now, at night, around this fire, something else takes over completely. The old one is telling a story. A long one, rich and strange, full of ancestors and animals, and the making of the world, full of what it means to be brave, to be generous, to be a person worth knowing. And everyone, including our stick figure, leans in. This is not an accident, and it is not rare. Researchers who study the few groups of people who still live close to this ancient way, like the Juhoansi of the Kalahari or the Hadza of Tanzania, found something remarkable about the rhythm of talk. By day, conversation is mostly logistics, the business of staying alive. But after dark, around the fire, roughly 8 out of every 10 conversations become storytelling. By day, almost none. By night, nearly all of them. Every single evening, for tens of thousands of years, human beings sat in the dark and narrated the world to each other. Our little stick figure, watching the firelight dance on these rapt faces, suddenly understands something that gives him chills. They are doing exactly what he does. The streaming shows he falls asleep to, the novels, every film ever made. All of it is this. People in the dark, trying to make sense of being alive through characters and conflict and consequence. The campfire is the cinema, the storyteller is the screen, and it has been that way since long, long before there were screens. And this, he realizes, is bigger than entertainment. This is how everything important survives. Without writing, without books, without a single hard drive anywhere on Earth, stories around the fire were how a whole people kept its history, its values, its sense of who it was. The stories were the memory of the species. They were passed down the generations the way you might pass a torch, hand to hand, night to night. Never written, never lost. So, sitting beside a fire, telling each other stories in the dark, may be the very thing that turned us into the kind of creature we are. The kind that has language rich enough to carry a tale. The kind that feels another person's fear and joy as if it were our own. The kind that can imagine, vividly, things that do not exist yet. Our little stick figure came to the fire just to keep the leopards away. He is leaving it a slightly different animal, Not bad, he thinks, for a circle of people in animal skins. He does not know it, but he is smiling in the firelight. And then, full and warm and finally unafraid, his eyes grow heavy, and he lies down among the others, and he sleeps. But the way he is about to sleep is not the way he thinks sleep is supposed to work. And this is where the night is going to surprise him most of all. Our little stick figure goes to sleep a couple of hours after dark. And then, in the deep middle of the night, his eyes open, and for one terrible moment, the old panic comes flooding back. He is awake, in the dark, again. The same thing that happened in his modern bed at 3 in the morning is happening here a million years away, and his first thought is the same one. Something is wrong with me. I am broken. Why can I never just stay asleep? But then he looks around the cave, and he sees something that stops the panic cold. He is not the only one awake. Several of the others have stirred too, quietly, calmly, with no alarm at all. One is gently feeding a log to the fire. Two are sitting close together, murmuring in low voices. An old woman is simply lying on her back with her eyes open, watching the smoke curl toward the cave roof, lost in her own thoughts. Nobody is panicking. Nobody thinks anything has gone wrong. This waking, in the heart of the night, is the most ordinary thing in the world to them. And it should be ordinary to us too, because for most of human history, this is simply how people slept. There was a historian who spent decades reading through thousands of old documents, private diaries, medical books, court records, the everyday paperwork of centuries gone by, and what he found was astonishing. For most of our history, going back at least to medieval times and almost certainly far, far beyond, people did not sleep in one long block. They slept in two. They even had names for them. First sleep and second sleep. You would go to bed a couple of hours after dark, and you would sleep deeply for 3 or 4 hours. That was first sleep. Then you would wake naturally, gently, with no fear, the way you might surface from a pleasant daydream. And you would stay awake for an hour, sometimes 2. And then, when you were ready, you would drift down into second sleep and stay there until morning. This is not a guess, and it is not some fringe idea. The 2 sleeps appear in writing going back to the most ancient stories we have. Roman writers mention them as casually as we might mention breakfast. Medieval tales are soaked in them. One physician centuries ago actually advised couples that the quiet hour between the 2 sleeps was a wonderful time to make a baby, because the body was rested and warm and calm. The phrase, the watch in the night, the one we always assume means a guard on a wall, very often meant nothing more military than this. It meant the ordinary, peaceful hour when ordinary people were simply awake in the dark. And our little stick figure, sitting up now in the cave, finally gets to ask the question that has been haunting him. What on earth did people do with this waking hour in the middle of the night? Everything, it turns out. And nothing. Some of them prayed. In many traditions, the still hours between midnight and dawn were considered the most sacred of all, the time when the world was quiet enough to hear something greater. Some of them thought about their dreams, which were taken far more seriously then, treated as messages worth turning over. Some of them, yes, made love in the warm dark, with nowhere else to be. Some tended the fire, the way our stick figure is watching one of his companions do right now, adding wood to carry the heat through the cold hours. Farmers checked on their animals, mothers nursed their babies. In later centuries, in towns, people even rose and visited their neighbors in the dark, not as some strange nocturnal oddity, but because everyone was awake anyway, and it was perfectly, completely normal. It was not insomnia. It was not a disorder. It was not a malfunction of any kind. It was just the night, doing what the night had always done, unfolding in 2 gentle halves with a quiet, waking island in between. The reason this beautiful pattern vanished is almost entirely artificial, and our little stick figure already knows the culprit, because he was holding it an hour ago. Light. Once people could keep a room blazing bright deep into the evening, first with lamps and then with the flick of an electric switch, bedtime slid later and later. Total sleep got squeezed. The natural gap in the middle got crushed out of existence, folded into one single block. And so, waking at 3 in the morning, which for thousands of years felt as natural as breathing, suddenly began to feel like a sign that something had broken. Our stick figure sits there in the cave, surrounded by calm, wakeful people, And he understands now, with a strange swell of relief, what was really happening back in that modern bedroom. When he woke at 3 in the morning, clear-headed and inexplicably calm before the panic took over, he was not malfunctioning. He was doing the single most ancient thing a sleeping human can do. His body remembered a rhythm it was never actually supposed to forget. He lies back down on the cave floor, completely at peace now, and lets himself drift toward his own second sleep. But the deeper he sinks, the more he begins to understand that these people did not merely endure the night, they had mastered it. And he is about to see just how far that mastery went. As our little stick figure settles back down, he notices for the first time what he is actually lying on. He had assumed his ancestors just flopped onto bare rock and hoped for the best. But beneath him is something soft. Layers of grass and leaves and carefully chosen plant material gathered and arranged into a real, deliberate bed. And when he digs his fingers down to the very bottom of it, he finds something that makes him sit halfway up in amazement. Ash. A thin layer of ash spread underneath the whole sleeping platform on purpose. In a place called Border Cave in southern Africa, researchers found exactly this, going back as far as 200,000 years. And the ash was not an accident from a stray fire. It was put there because ash repels insects. Ticks, mites, fleas, all the tiny things that crawl and bite and spread sickness in the night. Someone, 200,000 years ago, woke up itchy, looked at the cold ash from the fire, made a connection, and tested it. They were doing pest control before the idea of pest control existed. They were using chemistry before anyone had a word for chemistry. Our little stick figure lies there stunned because he finally sees what these people really are. That right there, that itchy person who noticed something and tested it and taught it to everyone else, that is science. The scientific method, running quietly in a prehistoric mind, aimed at the simple, eternal goal of getting a better night's rest. These are not people barely clinging to survival. These are engineers of their own sleep, solving problems with whatever the world gave them, making life measurably better, one careful observation at a time. And in the colder places, far to the north, where the winter night could last 18 or 20 hours and the cold could kill an unprotected person in a single evening, they solved a harder problem the same clever way. They slept pressed together in a great, warm pile, turning their own bodies into living insulation. More people in an enclosed space meant more warmth, which meant survival. And there is one last detail in that sleeping pile that our stick figure loves the most. Among any group, some people are naturally lighter sleepers, more easily woken, quicker to alert. Scientists think this was no accident either. A group where everyone slept like a stone was a group that got eaten. A group with a mix of deep and light sleepers had its own gentle rotation of watchmen built right into the bodies of its members, with no one forced to suffer through a deliberate, lonely, all-night guard. Evolution is wonderfully lazy like that. It solved the problem so no one had to stay up. Our stick figure could fall asleep happy right here. But the night has one more thing to show him, and it is the biggest thing of all. So, he rises, and walks to the mouth of the cave, and steps out, and looks up. And there it is, the sky. The real sky, with no city glow to wash it out, blazing with more stars than he has ever seen in his entire modern life. And he understands, at last, that for nearly every ancient people on Earth, the night was not the empty gap between days. It was the most charged and meaningful time in the whole turning of the world. Think about it from their side, he tells himself. The sun, the thing that made everything warm and visible and alive, died every single evening. It sank beneath the edge of the world. To countless ancient peoples, it descended into an underworld and had to fight its way back. Every sunrise was a victory. Every night was a vigil. He sees them all now, spread across the ages under this same sky. He sees the Maya, who built whole cities and calendars around the lights that only appeared at night, aligning their temples to track the planet Venus with breathtaking precision, treating the night sky not as decoration, but as a kind of intelligence that told them when to act. He sees the sky watchers of ancient Mesopotamia, reading the slow march of the planets for signs of when to plant, when to make peace, when to go to war. Their answers were wrong, but the instinct underneath was pure, careful science, the hunt for a pattern in the heavens. He sees, far out on the dark water, the Polynesian navigators, and his jaw drops. With no compass, no chart, no instrument of any kind, they crossed the largest ocean on Earth in open wooden canoes and found tiny islands like pinpoints in all that vastness. And they did it mostly at night, by memorizing the rising and setting points of hundreds of stars, by feeling the deep swells of the ocean against the hull, by reading the flight of birds and the shape of clouds. The night sky was their map, and in some ways it was more sophisticated than anything carried before the age of satellites. They had turned the dark into a library, and they could read it fluently. And he sees the small, brilliant, everyday cleverness too. The iron workers in old southern Africa who chose to fire their forges at night, because in daylight, the sun washed out the subtle colors of hot metal, and only in the dark could they read the exact glowing shade that told them precisely how to shape it. They used the darkness as a precision tool. He sees the night shift sanitation workers of a 4,000-year-old city, keeping it clean while everyone slept. He sees farmers in dry lands watering their crops by moonlight to keep the precious water from burning off in the heat. He sees the people of the frozen north burning oil and fat in their lamps through the endless winter dark, refusing to surrender to it, working and laughing and living straight through the longest nights on Earth. The night, our little stick figure realizes, was never empty. The night was full. He stands there at the cave mouth, under that ocean of stars, and lets it all settle into him. When we ask what ancient humans did at night, he thinks, we always imagine something small, something frightened. People huddled on cold rock, waiting helplessly for the sun, just enduring the dark until it ended. We picture the night as an absence, a blank space. The time when nothing happened and nothing mattered. But that is exactly, completely backward. The night was when they told the stories that became everything we are. It was when they slept in two gentle halves and woke in the middle to think and pray and hold each other. It was when they pressed close for warmth, against a cold that would otherwise have killed them. It was when they spread ash beneath their beds and turned their own light sleep into a watchman. It was when navigators crossed an entire ocean on nothing but starlight and the feel of the swell, when metal workers used the dark to see more clearly, when whole peoples looked up and read the sky as a map, a calendar, and a sacred text all at once. The night was not the gap between worlds. The night was a world of its own, with its own rules, its own skills, its own kinds of meaning. And human beings mapped it and mastered it and made it theirs over hundreds of thousands of years. And then our little stick figure understands with a small pang, we traded almost all of it away for electric light, which, to be fair, was absolutely worth it. He would not give up running water, or medicine, or warm rooms, or any of the 1,000 comforts waiting for him back home. The modern world is genuinely, deeply good. But something quiet was lost in how completely we conquered the dark. We forgot the campfire circle. We forgot the stories shared in the firelight. We forgot the two sleeps with their strange, clear, waking island in the middle. We forgot the stars overhead and the rhythms of our own bodies when nobody is telling them what to do. The stars begin to fade. The cave grows dim, and our little stick figure feels himself being pulled gently back, up and forward, across all those hundreds of thousands of years, until his eyes open. He is in his bed. The blanket is pulled up to his chin. The clock on the nightstand glows 3 a.m, exactly where he left it. His phone is lying face down where it slipped from his hand, and he is wide awake in the dark. But this time, the panic does not come. He does not reach for the phone. He does not start typing his symptoms into a search bar. He does not begin the long, anxious spiral toward dawn. He just lies there, in the quiet dark, and lets his thoughts move through him slowly, clearly, like water. And it feels, he notices, almost good, calm and clear-headed, and strangely his own, in a way that the bright, noisy daytime never quite is. Because he understands now what this hour really is. It is not a malfunction. It is not a disorder waking up inside him. It is the oldest inheritance he has. It is first sleep letting go, and second sleep not yet arrived, and the ancient waking island appearing between them, exactly as it has for tens of thousands of years. His body is doing something it was never truly meant to forget. Somewhere down in the deep code of him, A campfire is still burning, and a story is still being told, and the stars are still wheeling overhead, and a watchman who never fully goes off duty is keeping his quiet, gentle guard. So, if you ever wake at 3 in the morning and you lie there, inexplicably alert, your mind moving clear and slow in the dark, do what our little stick figure finally learned to do. Do not panic. Do not reach for the glowing screen. Do not start the spiral. Just lie there for a little while, in the dark, and think whatever you need to think. Be awake the way your ancestors were awake. Quietly, completely, in the deep middle of the night that has always, always belonged to you. You are not broken. You are remembering.